Grief continues to be one of the biggest mistakes ever in Magic the Gathering play design. One of the worst decisions ever to print those pitch elementals. We already see Fury banned in Modern, but now we continue to see the rearing of the ugly head of Grief in Legacy, using Scaminator as a vehicle to represent 25%, over a quarter of the Legacy metagame, as an archetype, as a play pattern, and Legacy players are frustrated. A lot of the content creators and big personalities are expressing their frustrations and how we need to act soon. And as you see on the screen here, big Legacy tournaments being canceled by TOs because they don't like the state of the format. This post right here was doing the rounds over the weekend, and I really wanted to talk about this just because as a tier 1 Grief hater in Modern, I'm kind of mixed about this. I'm happy to see it being bad in Legacy so that people can actually get eyes onto it. And then eventually this sentiment hopefully maybe getting carried on to Modern so that we could see this awful card being gone in Modern as well. I think too many people are, I guess rightfully so, worried about Nadu, but also the fact that we've had crazy insane cards in the format like Renin 6, the One Ring, Grief, like all of these cards, and of course with varying degrees of playability now. Renin 6 maybe not being the most busted thing in the format right now, the One Ring rearing its ugly head in terms of prices and availability, but also just Grief ruining everything. Now if you want to see me discuss future constructed topics like this, let me know what you want to see me talk about in the comment section down below, and you have to smash that like button if you hate Grief. You have to, right down below. If you're a Grief hater, I want to see a like on that video and subscribe to the channel for more Grief hate. Now let's hop into the whole scenario here. Let's break it down from a metagame perspective. So if you go into the Legacy metagame on MTG Goldfish here, immediately big blaring sirens should be going off for you here. 25.3% of the metagame in the last 30 days is Grief. Now, this obviously can be argued to be a little bit skewed because we haven't got the league data in a while. Now, that's actually a further discussion later down in this video. So as of June kind of 20th, that's the kind of big dump that we last had, was the ghosts haven't been posting in the last little bit due to kind of some various controversies again that we're going to address. But if we go to maybe the last 14 days, they're at kind of 21, again, a lot less like league data. If we go to 7, again, this is just because of the fact that we don't have any league data here. So I can show the fact that it's 50% of the metagame based on this curated kind of bit here, but we know what it really is. So we have to go to 30 days to get a real metagame share here. And if we kind of go into the list themselves here, this is kind of a Scaminator list right now. Notice how there's no Gristlebrand in here. Imagine a Reanimator list in 2024 where Gristlebrand, banned in Commander, one of the best reanimation targets in all of Magic's history, is not worth it anymore. And we obviously saw, you know, the cards like Atraxa, Grand Unifier being good for a while now, but really, like, again, this is a Grief scam package with like Force of Will backup, right? Which is absolutely insane when you break it down. You get to Grief, reanimate it immediately, and just continue on your merry way. You just have straight up reanimate, right? Like, it's not when it dies, it's just when it enters the graveyard. And what's even better about that is then you can reanimate other targets in the deck. So it's not just about when cards are dying, and then you can even entomb cards into there. So obviously you may not be entombing maybe a Grief, you're probably entombing something like the Atraxa or something like a Troll of Khazad-dûm. But you also, along with that, and I mean the Archon and the Animate Deads down here, you're also playing a Wasteland package as well. So not only are you disrupting your opponent's hand, you're disrupting their resources on board. You have Force of Will backup for the combos. You have Daze as well. Like, this deck does everything frustrating about Magic all together, right? Like, look at this list. Comment down below, what is more frustrating than this list? You have land destruction, counter magic that is free hand discard, like almost uninteractable threats because they just come back no matter what you do. Like, what is more frustrating than this list, right? I mean, just break it down for card, Psychic Frog was one of the better additions recently in the list. Getting flying, so you get a little bit of evasion, exiling cards from your graveyard. You're going to be ideally filling it up as well. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker, you're going to be able to draw a card, and then you can discard a card to put a 1/1 counter on Psychic Frog. So it's not 1/1 until the end of turn, it's a permanent 1/1 counter, and the discarding a card can act like kind of a soft entomb, get to, you know, put cards out of your hand. So if you want to put a Atraxa from your hand in the graveyard, you then reanimate it. Like, Psychic Frog is a great enabler for that while also presenting itself as a threat. Entombment's just a spell, they can counter it, but Psychic Frog, again, if they leave it out, they can maybe like counter the triggered ability, or they can try and remove it, but then that's just the threat. They're playing a removal spell for that. They're not necessarily playing a counter spell. It's already out. They have to be able to kind of deal with it. There's so many different angles coming out of Psychic Frog. A great new addition to the deck. Troll of Khazad-dûm, actually, like, a lot of people don't understand this, but Troll of Khazad-dûm, you know, not being able to be blocked by 3 or more creatures is absolutely bonkers. It's actually insane. Like, forget the fact that this swamp cycles. This has a Mega Menace. Mega Menace is actually cracked. Like in a legacy format full of fetches, like, this just needs to hit you like 3 times. Like, a legacy opponent, like, yeah, they're not playing shocks, but they're fetching at least like 2-3 times in the game, bringing them down to 18 to 17. That's 6, 12, 18. Like, this just needs to hit you 3 times, which is actually like very possible in a world of Forcible and Dazes. Like, this is actually an insane threat to reanimate, and it pitches to Grief. Very similar to Psychic Frog, being blue and black is so relevant because it pitches to Grief. And it leads to tournaments being canceled. I mean, obviously, I'm not mentioning the fact that it's pitchable to Forcible Psychic Frog is, but the Grief play pattern has led to this update from Owl Central Games here. You know, talking about how, you know, they had on Saturday, July 20th, a Legacy 5K plan, and after a long in-depth discussion between our events team, store leadership, sorry, I'll actually kind of reduce my camera size here for a sec here, just so y'all can read this. And entrenched legacy players, we've come to the following conclusion. Due to the current state of the legacy and sentiment of local and regional legacy players, our event is likely not to live up to the expectations that previous events have set up for quality, competitiveness, and attendance. That's why we've decided to cancel the event at this time. For the state of the metagame. It's clear that the greater legacy community feels that Wizards of the Coast should have banned Grief from Legacy for the health of the format. Like, they're just being straight up here. They're not playing around it. Like, this feeling has created a lot of discourse, the majority of which has been around how players will be shying away from Legacy until the next BNR announcement in August, which is insane. That's like a month away. That's so long, and they haven't been posting data about the leagues and challenges, which I'm going to get into in a second here. And this, along with other major legacy events in the region, indicate to us that our event will likely be the one many players choose to forego. So there's probably a little bit of competition as well, but because of the lack of attendance in many of them, they may forego this. So you know, it just, you know, between the dense modern RCQ season, already committed to 3 qualifiers and stuff, so just kind of managing a lot of events, they don't feel like this is going to be worth it for them, and that's completely fair. Owl City Games just really creating a lot of controversy. Like, it's fair to them, they should make a decision like this, but it's the fact that they had to make a decision like this based on the lack of response from Wizards of the Coast. Like, this should be on everyone's like #1 top of the radar when it comes to constructed Magic, and how Modern Horizons 2, the Modern Horizons set, continue to create a block constructed environment that is not healthy for the overall health of any constructed format that it's legal in. Like, you know, Vintage is its own thing, right? Like, you're not beating the Power 9. Oko, of course, was creating, you know, Black Lotuses that are 3/3 elks that are swinging in for lethal, but that's a whole other story. But when it comes to Modern Horizons, Legacy and Modern just being one of the, I guess, like, forefront constructed sets out there a lot of people pay attention to. Pioneer being another one, but that right now is being absolutely demolished by Amalia and a lot of combo decks. And heck, there was that whole RCQ controversy over the weekend where an Amalia player had like a bunch of their teammates concede to them so they get an invite. That's another video. But Grief itself creating this controversy where, you know, do you really need to wait for the end of August for our Grief and Nadu bans? I mean, out of Modern, so Phil Gallagher, Thraben, you talking about, or can we just ban them and move on with our lives? Like, Modern and Legacy both need action. Events are being canceled, and the creator program is banning Nadu for its event. That's right. So me, as part of the MTGO creator program, what they do monthly is they're hosting big format kind of tournaments built into the creator program itself. This month's is Modern, I believe, coming up this weekend, actually, and they're doing something special for the event, and they're banning Nadu to promote diversity in the format so that we don't just get a full Nadu top 8. They're doing something different, like the Modern challenge, that the Modern tournament that is showcasing creators, the front faces of your format and your game, banning Nadu out of Modern. And then in Legacy, we have tournaments that are banning, that are canceling themselves just because of the fact that Grief is legal, right? Like, we have so many frustrating things happening in constructed Magic right now. I mean, look at like the great example we've had set by the Pauper format. So Gavin Verhey just pre-banning Cranial Ram. That was a great decision for the Pauper format. It had great health and responses from the Pauper community at large, and helped save 2 major Pauper tournaments that were happening right after the release of Cranial Ram and Modern Horizons. So that was a great decision, but unfortunately we are not seeing that here from Wizards of the Coast, because again, the formats are too large to be managed by, I guess, one council. The proper format panel can't unfortunately exist for all formats. I wish it would, but again, Phil bringing up a great point that August is too far away. We can't have that change. And again, this big post is probably the big reason why I really like to set the nail in the coffin. I need to make this video just to get it out to everyone here. So nice of WotC to freeze deck lists. So I was kind of talking about earlier in this video a couple times where Wizards of the Coast is not posting data. You notice how, again, as I was showing that legacy metagame from the past 7 days, we only have like 2 submissions from certain deck lists. Like, we don't have any submissions from deck lists because Wizards of the Coast is withholding data while they rear back onto the decisions they made. And so they don't know that 6 out of 8 of the Legacy Showcase top 8 was Dimir Reanimator or UB Entomb. I can only wonder what it's like in the metagame share once they post these deck lists, if they do. This is insane. This is crazy. This is a real format. This is a real format. Like, if this was Legacy, if this was Modern, every single video I had this week would be screaming about how Modern is busted. I would become a Standard player if this is what Modern was. Like, I can't even imagine what Legacy players are feeling right now, right? Like, shout out to Underground C stocks, I guess, right? Force of Will stonks. Like, this card is insane. And I mean, like, the data thing that I'm talking about here is the MTGO decklist update here. So what originally happened was a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I made a video on it as well, where Wizards of the Coast or Daybreak Games announced that they are now releasing the full API for all deck lists, all decks that get posted in the leagues and challenges. So we're going to get the full range of information of decks that get posted onto there. And so, you know, Wizards of the Coast kind of stepped that back now because I guess their fears are that a lot of folks are going to be able to gain the same data that they have to gauge on banned and restricted announcements. So every time you read like a deck list or a banned and restricted announcement where they're talking about X percentage of the metagame was represented by this list, or the win rate of this deck list was not so high, so we didn't ban it. That type of information was informed by the API data that they restrict us to. And again, they released it fully. And so that was, I guess, to them a bit of a mistake, but it's kind of sus that in a state where Modern and Legacy as constructed events are in really tumultuous times, that they would be running back a decision like this, especially now where they're only going to be releasing top 32 decks of scheduled events and a selection of 5-0 leagues. They're curating it again, where in challenges we were actually getting everyone posted. I believe like for a while now, like 2-3 months now, we were getting all of the challenge registration lists. So everyone was getting posted, even in prelims, everyone was getting in there. And then the 5-0 list, it was kind of the same thing. You just got the 5-0s, but now we're getting a selection, only top 32, which is a big pullback. And it's kind of just putting the curtain back over our eyes over something like this, how Legacy is being really wound up by what Grief is as a play pattern, and how Grief honestly just informs being one of the worst, part of one of the worst design cycles in Magic history. Like, free spells that just don't have any counterplay to them just aren't for Modern. They aren't for Legacy. Heck, you know, even in a forcible format, Grief has taken over the metagame. And that's where I'm going to leave this video to all of y'all. How do you feel about Grief and Legacy right now? Do you have Grief at your locals? Do you see a lot of Scaminator there? Or have you played a lot of leagues or challenges in Legacy recently, and that has shown you that there has just been a ton of scam running around? Let me know in the comment section down below. Love to hear your thoughts on this, and I would love for Wizards of the Coast to take some action ASAP.